It's about a 9-minute ride to orbit, again with a Soyuz space rocket booster. It's a typical launch profile for a progress vehicle, just like with a Soyuz vehicle that would deliver a crew to the International Space Station on the same for-orbit rendezvous. The Progress cargo vehicle itself was actually delivered to Baikonur back in November. Once it reached Baikonur, it underwent obviously the usual series of electrical and leak checks in an integrated test facility. And once all that was completed this past week was when all of the propellants were loaded on board the Progress itself. Its Progress vehicle obviously can serve as its thruster jets can serve as capability for reboost of the International Space Station, which occurs periodically to maintain its proper altitude in orbit, especially relative to phasing and launch and rendezvous and docking of visiting vehicles. Once the rocket reached the launch pad this past Monday, all of the electrical and propellant umbilicals were connected. And then the booster propellant loading activities began about 5 hours ago. And we're now 8 minutes away from launch. Shortly after launch, the Soyuz reaches about 1,000 miles per hour within about a minute or so of liftoff. That's about the point where the launch vehicle passes through what's known as max Q, or the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle. About 2 minutes after launch, at an altitude of about 30 miles, there are 4 strap-on boosters on the first stage that will complete their duty and will be jettisoned. And that leaves behind the central single engine on the first stage to continue with the ascent for another 2 minutes beyond that. Payload shroud that's protecting the Progress itself, along with the escape tower, are jettisoned shortly after that 4-minute mark, when the vehicle's traveling a little more than 3,300 miles per hour. The first stage completes its duty just under 5 minutes after launch, and then the second and third stage continues on until about the 9-minute point, when that shutdown occurs and the Progress separates from that third stage to begin its mission. And of course, right after that, all of the deployable appendages occurs. That includes the solar arrays and the CORS, which is the automatic rendezvous and docking system, navigation antenna deploy as well. The targeted insertion orbit for today's Progress is about 120 by 150 statute miles, which obviously is well below that of the International Space Station, by design to allow, over the course of the next 6 hours, the stair-step rendezvous approach with a series of rendezvous maneuvers throughout the day that will slowly raise the Progress's altitude up to match that of the ISS for the actual approach to docking. Again, the docking port is on the Earth-facing Pirs docking compartment of the Russian segment of the complex. Now approaching 5 minutes until launch. At this point, the launch control is checking the range to make sure that the range is clear for launch. The Progress will join other visiting vehicles at the station. It's fairly crowded, actually. Aboard the International Space Station, currently a mass in space of just under 900,000 pounds, or a little more than 407,000 kilograms. When the Progress arrives, that mass in space of the overall complex jumps up to just about 912,000 pounds. The visiting vehicles include 2 Soyuz spacecraft that delivered 3 crew members each to the complex, another Progress vehicle, and also a Cygnus Orbital Sciences Corporation Cygnus cargo vehicle that arrived at the station back in January. Three minutes, 40 seconds to launch. The onboard systems have now been switched to internal control. At this point, the fuel lines and all the other elements of the rocket engines are being purged with nitrogen to essentially fireproof them by removing any vapors of fuel and oxidizer from around that area. And next up is the booster tank pressurization for flight. This essentially optimizes the flow of fuel, also helps add any structural support that's required for the booster rocket itself. Two minutes and 30 seconds to launch. Approaching 1 minute and 30 seconds. This is the point where the ground propellant feed will be terminated to the rocket. One minute to launch. The auto sequence start has begun. At about 35 seconds to launch, the first umbilical tower will separate from the rocket. 30 seconds to launch. The ground umbilical to the third stage has now been disconnected. And we're standing by for issuance of the launch command, standing by for that to occur here shortly. And we have ignition of the first stage engine, standing by for liftoff. And we have liftoff of the Soyuz rocket, delivering a Progress vehicle, the 54th Progress vehicle to the International Space Station, the 148th launch and support of ISS assembly and operations. All nominal, 35 seconds into the flight. And approaching 1 minute. That's the point where the vehicle begins to pass through the area of maximum dynamic pressure, traveling 1,100 miles per hour. All guidance, navigation, and control systems are in good shape. Minute 45 seconds, standing by for burnout and jettison of the 4 strap-on boosters of the first stage. Confirmation that those 4 strap-ons have burned out and separated. Traveling 3,300 miles per hour, an altitude of 30 statute miles. All being reported to be in good shape. Standing by for confirmation of shroud jettison. And approaching 3 minutes, we do have confirmation of shroud jettison. Now traveling 4,700 miles per hour. Core stage of the Soyuz is 56 feet in length, 13.5 feet in diameter, providing 96 tons of thrust for the next 3.5 minutes or so of operation. Approaching 4 minutes, all quiet, routine calls all the way uphill so far for the Soyuz rocket and Progress vehicle.
Pretty good, got a pretty good view of the first stage anyways.
Fantastic.
Yeah, after separation, we pretty much lost it, but it was a good show for a few seconds.
Good to hear it.
Four and a half minutes into the flight, you're hearing crew members aboard this station reporting they are seeing the at least the first stage of the launch from the ISS. So the chase is on for the Progress vehicle to arrive at the station later this afternoon. Approaching 5 minutes into launch. Second stage separation confirmed. The Soyuz boosters now propelling the Progress vehicle on its single engine, providing 30 tons of thrust, which will burn for the next roughly 4 minutes. Approaching 6 minutes into the flight, all continuing to go very smoothly as a team of Russian International Space Station flight controllers are monitoring the Progress's launch, as are a team of controllers here in Houston and around the world at other centers or other partner facilities supporting the ISS program. Six minutes, 30 seconds into the flight, all continuing to go well. The Soyuz booster third stage delivering nearly 5,700 pounds of cargo aboard the Progress 54 vehicle to the International Space Station. A little more than 7 minutes into the flight, the Progress vehicle atop a Soyuz rocket are both now traveling almost 13,500 miles per hour. Seven minutes, 45 seconds into the flight, about another minute or so of powered flight on the third stage of the Soyuz booster. Eight and a half minutes into flight, standing by for confirmation of third stage cutoff and separation. Nine minutes into the flight, we do have confirmation of third stage separation. 9.5 minutes now since launch. We have confirmation of separation of the Progress vehicle and also deployment of the solar arrays and appendages associated with the automatic rendezvous and docking system, the CORS system of the Progress vehicle. So Progress in orbit, again, it's insertion orbit about 120 by 150 statute miles as it begins the chase, actually, which began with the launch to the catch up with the International Space Station later this afternoon. So the launch very smooth for 54 Progress, now on its way to docking with that Pirs docking compartment on the Earth-facing port of that module of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. So the Progress delivering almost 5,700 pounds of propellant, water, oxygen, spare parts, and experiments to the International Space Station is well on its way after a smooth launch. The launch occurred 23 minutes 33 seconds after the hour. Obviously we'll be back with coverage of the rendezvous and docking activities this afternoon. The schedule right now shows coverage, our coverage beginning 3:45 p.m. Central Time, 4:45 this afternoon Eastern Time, and that will lead to the docking of Progress to the Pirs docking compartment, scheduled right now for 4:25 p.m. Central Time. Between now and then, a whole host of rendezvous maneuvers scheduled, the first of which about an hour from now. Several rendezvous maneuvers again throughout the day that will raise the Progress's orbit up to that of the International Space Station just about the time that we begin our coverage of the last 30 minutes of the Progress's automated rendezvous and approach to the International Space Station. So be sure to tune in here on NASA TV this afternoon as we pick up coverage with the Progress just about to arrive at the International Space Station. This is Mission Control Houston.